We are doing PARSHA Tisa today, and we are going to be speaking a lot about the sin of the golden calf and its relevance to us, and obviously the famous question that is asked every year: how could a people who received the Torah 40 days earlier and experienced the Almighty saying, "I am the Lord," and after such experience, how could they go and serve the golden calf? So that's going to be one of the questions. There's a lot of ideas we're going to try to jam into this hour and a quarter segment. So hopefully we can get through all of them. Now, when we go through this Parsha, it's interesting that there's a number of topics discussed before the story of the golden calf. And in order to just contain everything in the limited time we have, I'm going to choose two items to talk about. Now, you got to remember, everything that's in a Parsha has to be thematically connected. In other words, there's a number of items mentioned in this week's Parsha. There was the giving of the half-shekel coin. There was the wash basin. There was the anointment oil, the Ketores incense offering, the designation of B'tzalel and Oholiav to build the Mishkan. Then there was the commandment of the Shabbos. 6 topics. And then we finally come to the story of Moshe getting the tablets at Sinai from Hashem, and then the sin of the golden calf, and then what happens after that. So you can't just learn everything disjointed. There has to be a connection between all those topics before and the sin of the golden calf. So I don't have time to get through all of them, but I do want to pick 2 of them. And with those 2, that should give us enough to get an appreciation of where the sin of the golden calf was coming from. So the first topic is, which we read a couple weeks ago, Parsha Shkolim, the mitzvah of every Jew giving the half-shekel coin, the half-shekel silver coin, which money from that was used to pay for the communal offerings in the temple that were given for the entire year. And that was given in the month of Ador, and that would be for the fiscal year from Nisan for the rest of the year. So Nachmanides, the Ramban, in the first source, on the verse that says, the rich shall not give more and the poor shall not give less. So he goes through a whole discussion as to, you might think that when it says the rich shall not give more, means, but at least give the half. But since the second half of the verse says the poor shall not give less, which is a directive that the poor cannot give less than the half-shekel coin, so that must mean when it says the rich shall not give more, it means he can't give more than the half-shekel coin either. So the question is as follows. I can understand people always say they're poor. Very many people find it convenient to say they are poor when they may not be, but they think they are. So the Torah has to say the poor man can't give less than half because he thinks he's so poor he can't afford the half. So the Torah, of course, has to say the poor man has to give the half. He can't give less than half. I understand why you need to command that. That makes a lot of sense. Because the poor man, he'll make sure to be poor enough not to give the half. He's got other expenses. So of course, I understand why you need that. But since when do you have to tell a rich man not to give more? It's very rare that a person with means just starts plunking money down in front of you, unless he's asked. It happens once in a blue moon. And more than that, I understand. If this poor guy gives less, everybody says they're poor. There's going to be no money for the korbanos. I understand. But if the rich guy gives more, so what's the problem? Let him get more. So you got extra money. What's the worst that will happen? There's extra money in the treasury? Okay, so they'll find what to do with the extra money in the treasury. So what is the problem with the rich man giving more? Usually we like to encourage people to give more. So that's question number 1. Question number 2, another topic that's discussed is, again, the Torah mentions the mitzvah of keeping the Shabbos. And the Torah uses the words, after it says 6 days you will work and you'll rest on the 7th, the Torah says, but nevertheless observe my Sabbaths. So Rashi is bothered, why did the Torah have to tell us this? So Rashi says that although you'll be eager and enthusiastic to build the Mishkan, because we've been commanded now to build the Mishkan, so in your enthusiasm to build the Mishkan, you might not keep the Shabbos. So, because they're busy building the Mishkan. So that's very unusual. I mean, who is building the Mishkan? A bunch of refugees that don't know how to speak English or whatever. Are the laborers making the Mishkan over here? Not really. Very, very holy, spiritual people. Wasn't anybody who got to make the Mishkan. They were very, very big tzaddikim. Do you think anybody, when it was Friday afternoon, when they were weaving some of the tapestries for the Mishkan, would forget about Shabbos? I mean, after all, you're building a Mishkan. So why would a person think that he could desecrate the Shabbos? Right? We're talking about very holy people, so then why does the Torah have to go out of its way to tell us not to desecrate the Shabbos? So those are two issues that we'll come back to in about an hour. Okay, just so hold the thought. We'll come back to that and we'll see how this becomes very important. But now let's focus more on the sin of the golden calf. And the famous question of, again, how could the Jews sin with the golden calves? There's an interesting Gemara in Avodah Zarah. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says that David HaMelech was not the kind of man to do the act that he did, and nor were the Jewish people the kind of people to do the act that they did. What does it mean? The Gemara says, we know that David HaMelech did a very terrible sin when he married the wife of Uriah Hittite. And I'm not going to go through the whole story now, but he thought that this Bathsheba was a woman that he was supposed to marry, and indeed he was. And from that would come King Solomon. But she was a married woman. And David HaMelech did certain things that for a person on his level were inappropriate. I don't want to get into it. It's a whole story. It needs its own class. But he did an Aveira. And the Jewish people did a sin with the golden calf. So Gemara says, you guys reading this, David HaMelech was a lowlife, was really a terrible guy, and the Jewish people are terrible people, they sinned with the golden calf. So Talmud says, that's not true. That's not true. They really weren't people who would normally do this thing. Which David HaMelech normally on a regular Tuesday morning would not decide to sleep with Bathsheba, even though she's a married woman. And the Jewish people on a normal Wednesday morning would not decide to bow down to a golden calf. Just weren't those kinds of people. The Gemara goes on. So why then did they act this way? In other words, so obviously something was going on that made them do this. So it says, in order to teach you that if an individual sins, he could be referred to the individual David, and if the community commits a sin, they can be told to go to the community. In other words, if let's say an individual does an Aveira, he says, there's no hope for me. There's no hope for me. I'm such a sinner, God will never take me back. So Hashem says, don't worry. David HaMelech, he was an individual, he did an Aveira, he did Tshuva, and I forgave him. It was okay. So you don't have to worry. That's for an individual. A community, what if all community sins? They think there's no hope for us? So listen, the Jewish people, they also were a community, and they sinned, they worshiped the golden calf, and they did tshuva, and I forgave them. So don't worry guys, you can do tshuva, and I'll forgive you too. So in other words, it seems from this Gemara that Hashem sets up David HaMelech, he sets up the Jewish people, who normally would not do this Aveira, to get them to do an Aveira. Why? So that when people in the future will do the Aveiras, they'll have role models of people who sinned and did tshuva and that God accepted them, so that they won't feel so bad and they will be able to do this as well. The Gemara begs more questions than what it answers. Number one, it seems, usually God only gives you tests that you can pass. A. B, it seems that God stacked the deck against the Jewish people. It seems like he stacked the deck against David HaMelech, and he stacked the deck against them, so they fell. And to teach us a lesson. Well, if it wasn't fair to what God did to the Jewish people and to David HaMelech, how do I draw inspiration from that? When I do an Aveira, God's not stacking the deck against me. I chose to do an Aveira. I'm a bad guy. I'll look at David HaMelech, who God stacked the deck against him, who sinned. And then God forgave him. Of course God will forgive him. He stacked the deck against him. So how does that, A, it doesn't seem fair to David, it doesn't seem fair to the Jewish people, A, that God did it that way, he set them up to fall. More said they normally wouldn't do this. And B, if he did set them up to fall, then what inspiration do we learn from it when God's not setting us to fall? Right? The Gemara is saying they weren't the kind of people to do the Averas that they did. It means to say that Hashem, kind of pushed them very strongly to do that Avera. Doesn't seem fair. And even if it is fair, it's not going to help me, who Hashem didn't push me to do my Avera. I'm a lot worse than David HaMelech in the intentions of the Avera. So maybe God forgave David, but he's not going to forgive me. Yeah?
How do we know he doesn't push us to test us?
Okay, but he's, again, from the Gemara, the Gemara is saying, was not the kind of man to do that act. He would never have done that Avera. That Avera he would not have done.
Nor would we. But
No. We do plenty of Averas that we would do. Plenty of Averas that we would do, we do. God doesn't have to stack the deck against us. Every day we do Averas without this deck being stacked against us. Here the Gemara is going out of us. It's not saying, well, they said they did an Avera. But they're saying this was most unusual circumstances. This was not a regular bad day that the guy was in a bad mood to do an Avera. God really nearly pushed them into it.
So he did push them in? Or
that's what the Gemara would appear to say. If you say he wasn't the kind of man to do that act,
so
that means he normally would not have done this. He would not. He's not thinking about other women. It's not a lecherous guy. The last thing in his mind is to think to be with another woman.
So Hashem took away his free will choice.
That would seem to be what's going on over here. And that's the problem.
And you're saying God doesn't do that to us?
And he doesn't do that to us. He doesn't do that to us. We have free will choice. We have to understand, what does the Gemara mean? What does the Gemara mean? It's a very strange Gemara. You could have just said, God happened to have situations where people chose wrong. Gemara could have said, David HaMelech happened to make a wrong choice. We can learn from his wrong choice. That's what the Gemara says. God says they weren't the kind of people who would have done this Avera. David HaMelech would never look at another woman. The Jewish people would never think of making a golden calf. But God led him to it. So if he leads him to it, doesn't lead us to it. So in a way it tries to answer the question, how could you sin with a golden calf? The answer is, they normally wouldn't. But God pushed them into it. So that doesn't seem to answer anything. And the standard answer that's given is that the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, the new converts, the 3,000 who weren't really Jews from the old school, they sinned, but nobody else did. Still doesn't really answer the question, because we know the Gemara says that till today there isn't sufferings that we don't suffer because of the sin of the golden calf, A. And B, so then what about the 600,000 people who watched the others sin? Why didn't they stop them? So that doesn't help with that either. All right, so that's another question. Put that to the side. One more question. If you look at the course of events, what happened? Moshe hears, he's up in the mountain. Hashem's about to give him the luchos. He gives him the luchos. He tells Moshe, I want you to know the Jewish people, they sinned. They've been terrible. They're worshiping idols. What does he do? He takes the tablets. He goes down the mountain. He sees what's going on, and he breaks the tablets. Surprise, surprise. God told him they're worshiping the idol, right? So why does he even take the tablets down the mountain? Leave them up there. Say, you guys aren't ready for this. Bunch of babies. I left, where's the tablets? I left it up there. What do you leave it up there for? Look what you're doing. So he's just going down. And he goes down to break the tablets, knowing that if God told him to worship the golden calf, it's not like I have to see for myself to know if it's true. If God told him it's true, it's true. So just leave the tablets up there. And when you'll be better boys and girls, I'll come back and we'll get the tablets. Okay. Now we do see, the Gemara says in one of the sources that's over here, number 4, the Gemara says that Hashem agreed to Moshe and says, it's very good that you broke the tablets. It's a very good idea. Yesher koyach that you broke the tablets. So what was the point of breaking the tablets? So if you break the tablets, what does that mean? Well, now that I broke the tablets, the Torah is broken, and it's like you didn't violate the Torah. Doesn't seem to make any sense. It makes more sense. You just want to say that he gave them shock value to spank them. It's a pretty expensive shock value to take the tablets that God made just to break them. So what's the problem? If he would have come down without the tablets, that would have been shocking enough. You say, you should know, God gave tablets, and they're up there. I'm not bringing them down because you're not nice people. So, for example, if 2 people get divorced, do you take the wedding ring and break it? Just to show how mad I am, I'm going to break the wedding ring. Right? So what was Moshe's real intention of breaking the luchos? Okay. And the last thing is the Alshech's famous question. It seems that very odd that at the end of the 40 days, coincidentally, the Jews have the test and fail the test of the sin of the golden calf. You know, there were 40 days going on. The Yetzer could have been working on him day 20, day 25, day 28. He waits till day 40. Okay, you can say, well, day 40, they were expecting Moshe back. He didn't come back on day 40. The Yetzer would have a way to fool them. But remember, God was pushing them into the sin anyway, right? If he's pushing them into the sin anyway, he can push them on day 20. He's got to wait till day 40 for. Which really bespeaks a deeper question, the Alshech says, is it seems that the whole giving of the Torah is divided up into two parts. A, God at Sinai went and uttered the 10 Commandments, or at least the first two, and Moshe gave the rest. The Sinai revelation. Moshe goes up for 40 days, and he's going to come down with the tablets. Understand, why couldn't God make the revelation and Moshe come down with the tablets the same day? What's the problem? I mean, God has no problem of organizing the props. You know, it's not like, oh, you know, maybe we should have some tablets. Okay, you know, it'll take me 40 days to make the tablets. Okay, can you wait 40 days? I mean, obviously Hashem thought this well out. And he said, they're going to come to Sinai, and on Sinai I'm going to give the 10 Commandments. Fine. Moshe's going to go up for 40 days. I know why Moshe couldn't come up for 40 days before. Why couldn't come up for 40 days before? Why couldn't God delay the giving of the Torah for another 40 days? He said he needed 40 days to teach him the Torah. Teach him the Torah 40 days before. You know, be prepared for the performance. So Moshe could have come up 40 days before, studied and studied and studied, and Hashem say, here's the tablets. Now go tell him to get ready and to come up the mountain, and to come to the mountain. God will give him the tablets. Better yet, for better graphics, Moshe will be holding the 10 Commandments. Right, and God will be saying, here's number 1, I'm the Lord, over there, and have the lights set up, 3-dimensional, right, second command, the second one lights up, do it all together, make it a concerted effort. Why? God intended that the first be the oral, the giving of verbally, and then they come down. Now, what does the 10 Commandments, with the tablets are nothing different than what God said. Exact same thing. So it's curious why Hashem split it up, and all the more so that the sin came pooped on that day when Moshe was supposed to come down. Is it a coincidence, or is there something deeper to that? One more question. Can't ask too many more. It says in number 5, source number 5, Hashem says to Moshe, go down to the mountain, for your nation that you have brought up from Egypt has degenerated. Hashem keeps saying it, your people that you brought out from Egypt. Why don't you just say the Jews have degenerated? Why is he calling them your people? So Hashem says, you know, really, look at the ones who are sinning. These are the 3,000 people that joined us, late joiners, the Egyptians who converted. And, you know, they wanted to join us. You felt sorry for them. And you said, okay, well, we'll convert you. I said, I don't know if it's such a good idea, but you, being the very, you know, loving person, you said, why shouldn't the non-Jews have a chance too? So you gave them a chance. Look who the ringleaders were. It was this chevra that you were involved with. These were the ones who worshiped. So it's your people, not mine. Your people are the ones who. And more than that, we are told in the next source, the molten calf, we are told that, you know, Aaron, here's what's going on. They want to make a golden calf. Aaron says, you can't do this, sacrilegious. So why is Aaron involved? Because Aaron is trying to delay. He's trying to delay. He knows they made a mistake of a day. He knows tomorrow Moshe is going to come. He says, give me all your gold, give me all your silver. And he's really trying to slow things up, but they're pushing him. He says, listen, I'll put it all into a furnace. It'll probably take a couple days for it to heat and to get smelted and this and that. And by the time something ever happens, Moshe will long be back. So he puts all the gold in the thing. And then comes, and those who are in the morning class will appreciate this. So then there was a person who was a good magician who knew the black magic of Egypt. He said a certain incantation, and boom, came out a living calf. Instantly. Who was this magician? This magician was none other than our good friend Micha, from the Pesel Micha story, in the Sefer Shoftim, which we're doing in the morning. Why was his name called Micha? Micha comes from the word crushed. He was Mr. Crusher. Mr. Crushed. Why? Because we know Paro was throwing babies into the walls of Egypt if you didn't finish your quota. So Moshe Rabbeinu is walking by one day and he sees this little baby thrown into the mortar and he's screaming out. And Moshe says, it's terrible. He says, Hashem, how can you do this? Hashem says, I know what I'm doing. He says, Hashem, please, let me just take one out. Hashem says, listen, there's a reason why he's being crushed here. You don't know, but okay, you want to take him? Okay, listen, you want to learn for yourself? Take him out. We'll see what nachas you get from him. So his name was Micha, because Micha comes from being crushed. His body was crushed. He must have been some kind of invalid afterwards, right? So they pull him out of the bricks. He saves his life. And then what nachas does Moshe get? Years later, he's the one who knows the special black magic incantations, and he says, hocus pocus, boom, comes out the golden calf. So look, Moshe, look what you did. And this Micha was a character throughout the book of Shoftim. The whole story of the Pesel Micha. So, okay, that's an interesting fact, but what is disturbing is Hashem like putting salt on the wounds? He's saying, Moshe, remember I told you years ago that you shouldn't have saved that little boy, and I told you not to take those Egyptians that are converts. So it doesn't seem to fit in that Hashem should be rubbing it in on Moshe like that, unless there's a very great purpose. Okay, that's all the questions. Okay, so what does the half shekel coin have to do with the storyline over here? What does keeping Shabbos have to do with the storyline over here? What does it mean that the Jews in David HaMelech would not normally have sinned in the sin of the golden calf? Why did Moshe break the luchos instead of leaving them upstairs? Why did Hashem separate the giving of the Torah on the mountain and the giving of the tablets 40 days apart? And what is Hashem trying to tell Moshe by rubbing it in that the people that you saved and brought in are the ones that made the trouble? Okay, that's a tall order to get done in the next little while.